Manchester City 1-0 winners away to Southampton. Raheem Sterling, the goal scorer. Craig, Man City got the goal very early in this game. Did they deserve the full 3 points?
Yeah, I mean, I think they controlled the game enough. I mean, Southampton were certainly not cannon fodder, and that was to be expected the way they've been playing. But I think we're seeing a little sea change at City in terms of the way they're approaching games. There's clearly a shift to being slightly more defensive minded, and that has taken away an edge of their attacking threat. On top of that, we saw once again Bernardo Silva in particular, and I've pointed him out on a couple of occasions. One was at Tottenham when they lost, and another one today when this guy's got so much ability. But what the hell is wrong with him when he's in front of goal? He wants to pass the ball when he's 8 yards out rather than going and taking his chances. I mean, it's just incredible. On top of that, Kevin De Bruyne, in the final third with his finishing's not been as slick and as clinical, but they're keeping clean sheets, and that's been a big problem for them over the last couple of years when they haven't been successful in certain tournaments. And there's a definite sea change in terms of the way they're approaching games. They're a little bit more cautious. They're a little bit more compact. That is taking an edge off them going forward, but it's getting them the 3 points at the moment.
Yeah, Stevie, it used to be Manchester City would get a lead and add a second or a third. They don't really do that anymore. Some of it surely is what Craig's talking about, but some of it is also just really wasteful, poor finishing, isn't it?
Are you talking about for the opposition? Because if you're talking about the opposition, I was thinking about this after the game. I don't remember Southampton making a clear chance. This is a team that's nearly scoring 2 goals a game in the Premier League, and they never created a real chance where you're saying they should have scored. So I think that tells you how tight Manchester City are, certainly defensively. Now, again, the question is going forward, they absolutely have lost their shooting boots, but I would suggest a little bit of that's their problem. They're going to have to change. Yes, they've changed a little to be more defensive, but I think they need to get the ball forward quicker. They take far too long to get the ball from back to front, and by then, regardless of whether it's Southampton or anybody else, now they've got so many bodies behind the ball. And right now, other than De Bruyne, they don't really seem to have anybody who's going to create or even steal a goal from nowhere. When David Silva was there and Aguero was playing and they were flying, those were the 2 key guys up against a packed defence. Well, they don't have them anymore, and they really don't have anybody who's taken over that sort of mantle. So I think they're going to have to change a little. I think they're going to have to get the ball forward quicker. And actually, if you think about it, the goal they scored today, you talk about on Manchester City, Edison kicks the ball 65 yards, they get a second ball, De Bruyne whips it in and Sterling scores. I mean, that is totally on Man City. So maybe they need to try to think about doing a little bit more, not just kicking it, but, looking a bit further forward earlier.
As I heard somebody say on the World Free commentary that we got here in the US today, to that point, that the City goal was very much a City goal. It was a goal we know they score, and it was, as Stevie said, it was completely opposite, and it was the old, blood and guts, pick up the second ball, and then all of a sudden you've got the team. I mean, Ederson shelled it, nearly 80 yards. Just shelled it. It wasn't one of his normal ping passes. He hit it so far in the air. And then they picked up the scraps. And as Stevie said, listen, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to score the perfect goal every time, which it seems on the odd occasion they're trying to do. But that's been enough for them at the moment. And the other interesting thing is that this partnership, and it seems to be in its early days flourishing between Stones and Ruben Dias, is actually a little bit of a surprise. And it's maybe even a surprise to Pep Guardiola, who probably thought it was going to be a Laporte and Diaz partnership. And as it turns out, it's John Stones, who's fit again, looks as if he's got his mind on the game, and it's going to be a big year for him. But we know he's a good player, but if he can just cut out those mistakes, which he has since he's been back in the team, then things are going to be looking better for him and City.
Craig, the reason I asked if it was a deserved win for City is because there are a couple penalty shouts there for Southampton. One in the first half, Danny Ings, another one on Raheem Sterling, where, it looked to me very clear that he handled the ball in his own penalty area. Either of those a penalty for you?
I'm just not sure. I mean, when I first saw the Ings one, I thought my first thought was penalty, and then I thought, do you know what? he's anticipated the contact, and I think he just had to be braver, if I'm being frank, because you've got to expect a challenge coming in. So I would loathe to give a penalty there. The Sterling one popped off his thigh, and I personally don't think that's a penalty kick. I know there are some people out there that may, but I think he was a little unlucky. It skipped up off his thigh. His arm was relatively tucked in, and I think that might have been a harsh one.
Stevie, if it's a deflection off somebody else, that's one thing. That was Raheem Sterling's first touch. It was his touch into his hand. Was it a penalty?
Sorry, not a penalty. However, I would have given the Danny Ings one. I think it's a dangerous challenge. Defender's foot's way up near Ings' chin, and I know you can say he needs to be braver, but if somebody's big toe's coming towards your chin, it certainly makes you think, and it certainly puts you off. So I would have given that as a penalty kick. I'll be honest.
Listen, Seb, let me just make a quick point, and I wouldn't argue against it. I mean, I think it was a 50-50 call, but the game is this is strange. The game is refereed differently, it seems, when the ball is in and around the 6-yard box of the penalty spot. And I'll tell you why. There was in the West Ham game in midweek, there was a Sebastian Haller superb overhead kick, right? But there was a defender within heading distance of heading the ball away, who, when Haller overhead volleyed this into the net from what his foot looked as if it was at least 6 or 7 feet in the air, almost took the defender's, it's metaphorically speaking, he almost, took his head off, clattered him in the head. But that's never, ever, ever, ever refereed as a high boot. And I'd personally, and I'm not trying to take these superb goals out of the game, but what are you supposed to do as a defender in that situation? Just not go for it, or just presume you're going to get a boot in the face? So it's weird, but the game is refereed differently in some of these scenarios than it would be, because that challenge on Ings, as Stevie said, I mean, if that had been outside the box, right, it's going to be a free kick 100 times out of 100. But for some reason, the game is refereed differently in these scenarios.
Stevie?
See, both of those are completely down to the referee's interpretation. My interpretation, if I was the referee, would be that Danny Ings could have gotten to that cross if it wasn't for the boot coming up towards his face. Whereas, in my opinion, the Haller goal, the defender for me was never getting there. But again, it's an interpretation, and when it comes down to interpretation, then it's tough to just always ask for consistency.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.